Here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts. Hey, Pete, ever wonder what Steven Spielberg's favorite film is?
You know, Andy, I've heard he loves classics like Lawrence of Arabia, Meet Me in St. Louis.
Imagine chatting with him about why those films resonate with him so much.
That's exactly what we do on our podcast, Movies We Like. We've had incredible guests like actress Dee Wallace, cinematographer Eric Messerschmidt, director Steve Miner, and former Disney animators Tom and Tony Bancroft.
They share their favorite films and the impact they've had on their careers, offering fascinating insights into the craftsmanship and storytelling techniques that make these movies so special.
If you're curious about the magic behind the scenes, subscribe to Movies We Like from True Story FM on your favorite podcast app. New episodes are released on the fourth Monday of each month with early access for our members.
Join us on Movies We Like as we explore the movies we all like with the people who make them.
And Stephen, our people will call your people. Let's make this happen, puppy.
Subscribe today.
Hello, cats and kittens and non-binary people who wear mittens or who don't wear mittens. This is the Star Wars Generations podcast, and we are back and continuing our conversation about The Force Awakens just as soon as Erin stops getting a ridiculous look on her face about the ridiculous things I just said. So I was teasing myself. I just said a teasing look on her face about the ridiculous things I just said.
Yes.
Look, with Walt as vice presidential candidate, I am embracing my dad humor real hard.
Oh, okay.
So we're here for that era. So we're going to continue our conversation of The Force Awakens. And I want to start, I'm going to have to disappear in about 20 minutes because this is my spouse's birthday. And so I'm taking her out for dinner with a bunch of her friends. But I'm sure that these two will continue to maintain the mature air of professionalism that I tried to bring to this podcast. That there does not need to be a cat in the area for the mice to resist playing and stay on topic. So just hear my voice as a stay on topic. Stay on topic. Anyway,
we're going to build our own topics, see what happens.
We are going to build our own topics.
Fans, write in. Tell me what you think. It could be great. I want to hear all your thoughts. In fairness, every time I've handed over control to these two, it has been fantastic. So I have no concerns there.
Thank you.
One of the things that is for me kind of foremost, anytime I think about The Force Awakens, and I think this was with the first, we talked about how like the first time we saw, at least for me, I think for kind of all of us, there's some sense of like, ooh, Star Wars, or at least for me especially, like Star Wars is back. We're okay. This is good. This is nostalgia. And then as I got past that and I watched it again, I started to have some like, okay, but what about this? And I think for me, one of my biggest disappointments about this movie is that it very quickly takes us back to the position of the original trilogy, where the Empire, in this case, the First Order, is firmly in control, and our heroes are a small ragtag group of rebels, in this case, the Resistance, fighting against that. And I think for me, and this is in part because I had read the Thrawn novels, which really go into this, which are some of the first of the extended universe books, the original Thrawn novels that came out in the mid and late 80s. But other books in the extended universe had built into this. One of the real focuses of those books is the idea that restarting a government after a period of authoritarianism is really hard. And when not everyone is on board with a democracy or a republic, how do you fight the authoritarians without becoming authoritarian yourself? And we've seen that explored a lot in later TV shows. And I think part of that's because I was not the only one who was kind of frustrated that in this, instead of giving us that kind of a story of here's what the new government is like, and here's the problem it's having with this, ragtag bunch of ex-Imperials who want to start the First Order, we very quickly went back to the First Order's in control and our heroes are the ones scrambling.
Yeah.
How did you guys feel about that? About the way it kind of like, didn't reverse that, but kept it kind of exactly as it was?
It's not something that bothered me the first few watch throughs because, like we've kind of talked about, it's just so similar to A New Hope. It's hard to not get excited about it and just get into it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like as I continued on and actually noticed and remembered that the Republic got destroyed, because I forgot about that by the end of the movie the first time because it was such a little part of it. It did kind of raise these questions of like, Okay. Well, first of all, how do you kill an entire government and actually succeed? Like, there.
Right.
Second
We
of
talked last
all,
week about, wasn't it helpful that all of the fleet was in
yep,
this one sector?
Yeah.
And
yeah. So it seemed kind of just like a plot device that they had to kind of excuse away the Republic's existence because they wanted such like a dramatic story again of the little guys.
Mhm.
And I think that maybe it comes down to that's a better box office seller than
Yeah, that's totally possible.
a movie that gets into more of the semantics and the nuances of like a new government and trying to rebuild and heal what was done by the empire. I think it kind of comes down to like, well, how can we make people excited about Star Wars again? A
Mhm.
New Hope did it great the first time around. Let's just go for as many of those tropes as we can and see if we can't get people back into it.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think that like I said it last week, but I feel like this was very much like a earn the trust back kind of thing. I also think
Mhm.
that like interestingly at least, I feel like people at the time of the prequels or the time when when the sequels were being made, like there wasn't as much like public interest in like the politics. I feel like the politics in like Phantom Menace and some of the movies were actually like seen as the slower and boring parts.
Mhm.
And then I think Star Wars fandom evolved or just kind of realized that people actually were really interested in the politics. I mean, that's why like Andor, I think, is partially so successful, and a lot of the other shows that like do kind of touch on that and do some exploring of that. And so I think that they try to stay away from the politics of it all and just throw us into the middle of again a similar story, but like one that was more focused on like events and less on the the back workings of how
Mhm.
all of this came to be, which again would still interest me. I would still watch like a movie or a show that like showed like anything in that period of like how the
Yeah.
you know the Republic was being rebuilt. And again, we've seen snippets in The Mandalorian, we've seen snippets in Ahsoka, but like to see a true, just dedicated story on the politics, I think would be something that would probably actually enhance The Force Awakens.
Sure.
Yeah, and
I
I'd be curious about the beginnings of the First Order. Like, what was the first thing that made them known? Was it whispers? Was it an attack? There's just a
Right.
lot to learn there.
And I feel like right now, those answers are kind of being like a handful of seeds that are thrown to the wind. Those answers are somewhat out there, but you have to watch Resistance and then read 8 different books and then
Mhm.
play 2 or 3 different video games in order to find all these different kernels and put them together.
Mm.
And I think I agree with you about the kind of movie this was. I There's often times where I can say, "I wish it was this kind of story instead," recognizing that commercially that kind of story would never succeed.
Yeah.
And even like as you said, Alex, I think with Andor and with some other stuff like that, and the Acolyte, I think as well, there's a growing understanding that there is a portion of the fandom that's very interested in those shows. But I think that like when we talk about the fandom, we're talking about people who are like, "Oh, there's new Star Wars content. I'm going to check it out right now." And I'm going to possibly participate in online conversations about it. And then there's a minority of it that's very toxic and very loud, and I think there's a lot more to the fandom. But I think that the fandom is also only a small part of the people who will watch Star Wars. And
Yeah.
that there's a lot of folks who, you know, are happy to go watch a Star Wars movie every other year. And that's about as much as they're going to interact. And to be clear, I think those people are just as legitimate fans of Star Wars as we are, but there's a lot more of them. And I think I agree. Like the number of people who are going to watch Andor or pay for Disney Plus to get Andor compared to the
Mhm.
number of people who are going to buy one ticket for one Star Wars movie, I think the first group is massively dwarfed by the second group.
Mm.
I agree. I think that's a great point. Is like these movies are not just to be viewed by the people who love the universe. It's
Hmm.
people who maybe saw one of the originals when they were a kid with their dad, and they're like, "Yeah, that'd be fun. I'll take my kid to that." Or maybe you saw a cool commercial and you're like, "I've never been into Star Wars, but I guess."
Yeah.
And yeah, that's interesting. I didn't think of it that way, but maybe it's also so similar to A New Hope in an effort to pull in a new fan base
Hmm.
and pull in new folks. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Aaron, I think that we often ask you to kind of be the voice of the Zoomers in this regard. but I definitely know that, like, as you've said, you had a father who was a big Star Wars fan, and he kind of got you into a lot of the shows before you saw this movie. And but also the movie had a huge effect on you because you were fairly young. But I've heard of lots of people for whom Rey was the first Jedi they ever saw. This movie, seeing this
Really?
when they were between 5 and 12 or even older, was the first experience they had of Star Wars. And so this is the thing that is A New Hope for me, or Clone Wars for Alex, or Rebels for you, and that's just as legitimate as anything else.
Hmm. Yeah, that's crazy to think about how young people are, or just like how. I
How
mean,
are
it's
you?
not crazy to think about people who are later in life coming into the fandom and being like, "Oh, that's cool." But it's wild to hear you say like kids who saw the movie when they were 7. I'm like, "Oh, you're half my age."
Hmm. Wait, is it really that recently that? 'Cause so you were like 14, 15 when this movie came out?
13. So,
13. Okay.
a little less.
8 years ago.
Yeah, I would have been. What is it, 2015 it came out? I would have been 18.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was even more
Formative
rambunctious
periods of
than I
our
am
life.
now.
Oh boy.
Mhm. Oh boy, keep the peace, keep the peace. So let's talk about some of the characters who really didn't get enough attention, I think, last episode. And speaking of a character who gets a lot of attention in this movie, and in our bonus section, we're going to talk about things that were started in this movie and not very well paid off in later movies. But for now, let's just talk about it in this movie. Let's talk about the character of Finn, FN 187. I think I just got that number
Ah.
wrong.
2187.
217. Thank you. That's very on brand for me. What
2187.
was it like for y'all seeing like a stormtrooper who had a face and who had feelings and spoke?
But I remember the first time the teaser trailer came out, and like the first thing you see is this unknown individual wearing stormtrooper armor with like their helmet off, and I was like, what a way to start off, because we had not seen that before. I mean, we'd seen clones in the Clone Wars obviously with their helmets off, but like I don't know if I've seen outside of maybe, and I don't even know if I've seen this in a video game. I don't know if we've seen stormtroopers with their helmets off. And so it was really interesting to me because he was just like a unique character. I thought like this dude was so interesting. I remember like going into the movie, I was so enthralled to see who this Finn character was. And I was like, from the beginning, they really play him off as to be like one of the major leads throughout the trilogy. I know he annoyed me a little bit because he was a little whiny.
Mhm.
But he grew on me over time because I was like, okay, he's whiny,
Mhm.
but he's also just really insecure, and like I think that's part of his character. And like the point is that he like grows into himself and gains that confidence, and like the fact that like Maskanata gives him the lightsaber and all of it. I don't know. I just after that movie, I was like, he could also like Rey could be the Jedi, Finn could be a Jedi. Like where are we going?
Mhm.
What's gonna happen? Like I thought his possibilities were endless in this film or moving forward after this film.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, like, I'm gonna be honest, I never noted it as significant seeing a stormtrooper with their helmet off. And I think that's because I grew up on the Clone Wars. And so it was so in my
Mm.
head that clones and stormtroopers are so similar. I assumed they, okay, basically, I was surprised that he was a person of color because in my mind, all the clones are, well, I now know are people of color, but as a 7-year-old watching the Clone Wars, I thought they were all white.
Right.
And in my mind, it's just like, well, I mean, all the stormtroopers probably look about the same too, like a man in his late 20s, early 30s, close crop, dark hair. That's basically a clone, but that's just what I thought they were. And so it was very interesting. And I think we see later in this trilogy too, is just how unique and different these versions of stormtroopers are because they're not
Sure.
manufactured people. They are children who have been stolen from their homes. And that was another aspect that was new to me is the fact that these
Yeah.
like we're just acquired children. It's the same as the Jedi, but even worse. And speaking, Alex, on how you were saying he was a little bit annoying, I think that bothered me the first few times I watched it. But what just clicked this last time I watched it with my mom,
Mm.
he's basically a baby. Like,
Yes.
I view
Mhm.
him the way that I view the clones in the Republic Commando book. They're
Yes,
described
very
by
much so.
Jedi as a grown man, yet she senses a child near her. Like he has no life experience. He has no ability to communicate with others. He doesn't even have a goddamn name, you know? Like, he's got
Yeah.
nothing. And so, of course, when he comes out, because also I was like, dang, this guy is like all about this girl. When I first saw it, I was like, damn, he is obsessed with her. They trying to, you know?
Mhm.
But then later watching it, I see it and I feel it now is much more of a friendship type of a love. But
Yeah.
because he does cling to her so strongly, it feels like it might be more. But I think that he does that because this is the first person outside of the Empire that you've interacted with that didn't immediately die. Well,
Right.
quotes around the die for Poe.
Yeah, I would very much agree with all that. It definitely, especially the whole like stop holding my hand thing. At first, I was kind of like, oh, yep, it's a guy hitting on a woman, etc. And then I was talking to a friend of mine who'd been homeschooled, and when he told me what he saw in Finn was very much his like it reminded him of the way he acted when after being homeschooled for so many years, he went to a high school. And he just had no idea how to socialize with people and was so excited to have friends, to meet other people his age. And they were all like, whoa, dude, have some chill. 'Cause he was like, oh, you're my new best friend. I'm gonna hold your hand now, like all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it's very much what they do with Finn. Um, I It's interesting also, Erin, that you say the thing about the stormtroopers because I had the exact opposite feeling. I thought the stormtroopers were droids for most of my childhood.
Oh.
Because
Really?
they're never given any FaceTime. There, and I think it's intentional because I think there's a sense of like we want them to be nameless jackbooted thugs so that we can slaughter them en masse by the millions or thousands without having any moral compunction whatsoever because they're all servants of this evil empire. And so for me, the idea of like, oh, it being a person, and also that a person who didn't willingly do this but was just brainwashed as a child was completely revolutionary. And I really love that.
As a kid, I definitely also thought the stormtroopers were the same as clones. I thought that like the clone army had just been like their armor had just been changed, and they were like,
Yeah.
because like I think as a kid, maybe my dad told me like wrong information when I was young because he wasn't like as deep in the lore. But I think as a kid, it was like, where did all of these stormtroopers come from? And I think as a kid, I believed the answer to that was given in the prequels in, oh, they're a clone army. So that's just like,
Yeah.
this is the same army we've always seen.
Yeah.
I do
That's
think
how I
that like,
was too.
I was gonna say, I like it better the way it is now. I like the fact that they're all different entities.
Yeah, me too. No, I was just gonna say, when I was younger, I didn't grasp the fact that clones aged twice as fast, so it seemed completely plausible that all the clones could still be stormtroopers.
Hey,
Right.
Rex is canonically on Endor. Just saying. A Generation 1 clone trooper was at the Battle of Endor.
That has the canonicity of that is still debated. Like one person from Star Wars said that, and then someone else was like, no. So
No, it says at the final episode of Rebels, Sabine in her voiceover says that Captain Rex fought in the Battle of Endor.
oh, okay, you're right. The
Yeah.
idea that we see him as that.
Oh, yeah,
bearded
that
guy.
is debatable. But like him being
Yeah.
there is for sure canon. Yeah.
Definitely.
I know who you're talking. I know exactly what you're talking about, though. Yes, that is still debatable. I like to headcanon believe that's him, but I know it's just some random guy who kind of looks like him.
That's fair. I've got to run in a moment, so let me just say these last two things, and then I'll step off and let you guys keep discussing. I think the only thing that bothers me about it, in terms of this part of Finn's character, is I feel like they're very inconsistent about what his connections were to the other clones, to the other stormtroopers. Because on the one hand, I would think, if you used to be part of this awful organization and you recognize that it was not like you were brainwashed into this, you're going to have some moral sympathy for everybody you left behind, right? Because like they were all brainwashed too.
Yeah.
But Finn has no problem, again, like joining in the mass slaughter of stormtroopers when they're attempting the mass slaughter of the good guy. I mean, like, I'm not saying that like, save all stormtroopers by any means, but like, it was really interesting to me that he has no sympathy for the most part towards the other stormtroopers. Then the fact that he's just given a number, not a name, and we're kind of shown that they have like no ability to socialize with each other helps to reinforce that maybe this is why he doesn't. But then think about what is his sort of like the thing that sends him over. It is when this other stormtrooper dies and kind of reaches out, puts a bloody hand on his helmet. First of all, I have no idea why this one blaster bolt that killed that guy caused a bleeding wound that has never been seen before and never been seen again in all of Star Wars. But putting even that aside, it felt to me like this was someone who he was really close with, who he had a real connection to. And so it felt a little weird to me that I feel like they didn't really fully decide who was he, what was his relationship to the other stormtroopers. Is he fundamentally different from all of them? Are they all people who would have been like him if it had been them who had had someone reach out a bloody handprint, etc.
I have some possible insight on that. Because I agree. When I first saw it, I was almost under the assumption of like, that's a friend. That's someone who they did a lot of training together. There's a reason that that death affected him. But when he tells Rey the truth toward the end of the movie and says, on my first mission, I made a choice and I ran. And so it's like, it's not that something finally happened, the straw that broke the camel's back. It's like, it's literally the first thing that happened to him. The first bad thing that happened to him when he realized death was real. He was like, shit, I gotta go.
Yeah, I don't know. I also kind of interpret it as it being someone that he knew, but I also think it could work either way. Like even if it was just like he sees himself and all these other stormtroopers, like.
Mhm.
But it's clear that, like, I mean, you see, like, later in the movie when, like, that other one calls him a traitor, like, they all train together. Like, you can tell that, like, they all, and because they were for sure, like, kind of brainwashed, but they were still, like, not clones and, like, not just kind of stormtrooper, like, laid back dumbasses.
Yeah, like they're still sentient beings.
They're still sentient beings who I think formed relationships with one another, same as, like, I mean, the clones did too. Like, all of them did, honestly. Like, I think that, like, it's like if like I don't know, I mean, if Rex was in the situation and like that just happened to Jesse in front of him or something, I mean, not, I mean, it basically did, but
Jesus.
sorry, but you get my point. Like it's that connection was there, so yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Everyone
I
in Star Wars has connections and relationships,
yeah, and
except
it's
for
just like,
Darth Maul.
listen, he loved um his brother, kind of,
Not really.
I said kind of,
Okay.
kind of. Okay, so all I was gonna say was that the other thing about Finn, like, it's just they teased this whole movie that like he was force sensitive, that he was gonna be a Jedi, that like
Mhm.
I don't know, like he was never like super skilled with the lightsaber, but it just we'll talk about this more in the bonus section, but it dismayed me how much they deviated from that path they were setting him on. The other thing about Finn is his relationship with Rey, and we'll talk about Rey in a minute, but like I don't know, dude. Like, was like it felt like he had a crush on her for a lot of the movie, to me at
Oh,
least.
I agree.
And
Yeah, it's like
I don't know, like it felt like Ray at first was kind of friend zoning him, which is an important friend. But like throughout the films, I was a big Ray Finn shipper.
yeah.
Um, I know there was Poe and Ray shippers and Kylo and Ray shippers and all sorts of people out there, but
Poe
I,
and
I,
Rey
I
is crazy.
Poe and Ray is crazy. I agree. I was I was a Ray and Finn shipper, but then I did turn into unfortunately a Ray and Kylo shipper because I was a Poe and Finn shipper. And
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
I
say.
was like Poe Finn Ray can't have Finn because Poe has Finn. So like we got to give Ray if Ray's gonna or Ray can just have no love interest. That would have been fucking fine too.
Yep.
We'll talk about when the Rise of Skywalker gets here.
Later,
I'll give my
later.
opinions on that. But yeah. So I don't know. I think that like it was just, they were very close friends, but, like, Finn, he always seemed to sacrifice himself, do everything he possibly could for Rey. Um,
Oh my god, when they roll up on the planet and Han Solo's like, "Okay, so how do we do this?" And he's like, "I don't know how to do anything. I just came here for Rey." Han
yeah,
Solo's
I
like,
worked
"There's
sanitation.
people counting on us. The galaxy is counting on us."
Yeah, he's like, "We'll figure it out. We'll use the Force." That's not how the Force works. Uh, oh, Harrison,
Some great quotes
you
from this
sly
movie.
devil. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you have anything else you want to say about Finn? Can
So
I?
I will make a
Yeah.
comment on the homeschooler theory as a former homeschooler myself. Hey, hi, hello.
Hey, hi, hello.
I do kind of get the point that Matthew's making, but I would say it's not necessarily that homeschool kids are not socialized. Some are not, correct. But me, I was very well socialized, but I still had that reaction when I interacted with public school kids. And it's because when you're homeschooled, you're used to like all of your friends being close friends because they're either your family members or they're your friends' family members. Like it's this different type of friendship that is very close, where it's like, oh, well, I see you 5 days a week at soccer practice and we hung out like a few times, therefore we're best friends, right? But it's like, she would never call me to hang out. She's 12 and worried about other things going on with her school friends, you know?
Right,
And
right.
so I do kind of get that idea of just the excitement maybe of like having a friend, and how that could come off very much as like flirty. But also the you got a boyfriend, cute boyfriend. That's pretty hard to dodge the crush allegations when you say that,
Yeah,
Finn.
the crush allegations were aggressive in that moment.
They
Now,
were
had
pretty
Finn
strong.
known Ray for all of like an hour, yes. So it was
Yes.
like a surface level crush that grew into a bigger one, I felt like, but
Yeah.
whatever. So if we may transition to our main character who we did not discuss last week, Miss Ray, nobody.
Yikes.
Uh, Ray. So we introduced to Ray as a scavenger in the
Mhm.
middle of a desert
Oh,
world.
can I say I thought she was a Tuscan. Dead ass. Thought that was a
That's fair.
Tuscan.
When you first saw her, I was confused what the hell she was too. But I really like the way they introduced her character in the movie. Like, first of all, great cut in general, but then like seeing her
Yep.
scavenge for stuff, and like a good moment for me to mention that, like, especially in Jakku, like the design, the world building design of like the remains of the Battle of Jakku, with like the fallen star destroyers and the remnants that she's scavenging on this planet, and like the fact that she's living in a former AT-AT and like wearing an old rebel pilot's helmet, like just
Mhm.
great design. And like you can see off the bat, like she's been here forever. She doesn't really talk to anyone. She's a loner, but like she is often in her own head, like very Luke Dreamer-esque. Very much
Yeah.
modeled after Luke, I feel like. And then obviously BB-8 turns her world upside down, but you just see immediately she takes shit from nobody. She's super independent. She's badass. And I was like enthralled with Rey in this movie. Oh my god. I was like, they could not have found a better like future Jedi. I was like, Daisy Ridley, slay. Just slay.
Slay. Slay.
And you know, I feel like they set up so much, through like when she touches the lightsaber and has those crazy force visions, and like
Mhm.
there's just so much like of a fascinating journey she goes on, and like her connection with Kylo is like immediately apparent in this film. And the one thing that always confused me, and that again made me keep thinking that she was going to be like um related or had been trained in the past, I know I talked about this a little bit last time, was just that like she was so quick to like pick up on all these different things. And it's kind
Mhm.
of explained in Rise of Skywalker how powerful she is with the Force. But it just fueled so many theories in my brain. I was like, oh my God, what if she's this? Or what if she's that? What if she's it? And then, of course, we get completely different answers on who she is in the following two movies.
Yeah.
But it's cool to see like her development and her connection with Kylo, her relationship with Finn, the way that she immediately like wants to go after Luke, and with this desire both to break free but also to stay. Like Luke always wanted to like leave. I felt like he had to stay because of his aunt and uncle. And Ray deep down wanted to leave, but like was so chained by like this idea of her family coming back that she just kept trying, just kept staying in Jakku. So I don't know. I thought she was really well done in this movie.
Yeah, so that's something that's actually I thought about a lot at the end of the first movie is like, why'd they send Rey to go get Luke? Like, you have a whole resistance full of capable people, and you're gonna send the Wookiee who's been out of the game for like 10 years and the chick that just showed up, the scavenger? Like, I get it, Leia. You guys had a meaningful hug. You trust her, whatever. But, like, come on. I just was always like, why did we give her this penultimate, like, mission, like the most important thing to
A
do in the
lot of trust.
Resistance.
She was also the one that had been captured and like had to be rescued, quote unquote, by Han and Finn.
Yeah.
Even though Han died and Finn had to be rescued by her and Chewie.
Yep.
Rip. But I
Oh,
agree. I mean,
also,
I agree.
yeah, I don't know. It always just like bothered me a little bit. I was like, okay, like I get that this has to be like the main character, but like I always thought like, oh well, why don't you send like Poe or like anyone else as well? You know, like yeah, Rey can go. I get it. She's supposed to be like one of the main characters. But it was just always kind of like an odd
And go,
thing
it's
for
fine.
me. She's allowed, I guess. But I want to say also at the end of the first movie, I was convinced Finn was dead. Okay, not at the end, because at the very end we see he's alive. But when
Yeah, they say
Kylo
we
like
have a heartbeat.
just sliced right up his back, like that's your
Yeah.
spine, bro. Like
Yeah.
it's over for you. Apparently not in Star Wars.
And that was like
Um,
ruthless too. That like showed how cruel Kylo could be.
I mean, yes, but also it does bring up the question of like, okay, but why didn't you just kill him? Like you
'Cause
could have
he wanted
done that
he,
exact thing, but had your lightsaber absolutely cleave a 6-inch wound in him. You know, we see that all the time in the books is how deep a lightsaber can go. Like it comes back to the idea we talked last week of like, oh, is Kylo toying with them? Well, yes,
I
he's
think
toying with
yes.
Rey because he wants to train Rey. But why does he give a shit about Finn? Finn is just there. Like
Because he's
in my
pissed and he's
mind,
sadistic, I think.
I guess, yeah, probably. Maybe he was like, yeah, fuck this guy. Go be paralyzed, piece of shit. Like
I mean,
maybe that was the thought process.
shit was
Honestly, I
dark, yeah.
don't put it past him. Out here talking about, I will finish what you began, grandfather, or whatever he says.
Who finish what you started? Show me, grandfather.
Show me. Great Adam Driver impression. Really
Yeah,
loved that.
Thank you.
Um,
The other thing confused me about Rey, Aaron, was that
mhm,
Rey and Finn are together this whole movie. They
mhm,
form a bond.
mhm.
Finn is injured, like maybe dying. They
Yep.
roll up to Takodana, where the rebel base is. What?
Sorry.
What?
I've never heard that planet before.
Oh, actually, Takodana is where Maz's
I thought you just said
setup is.
Taco Donna.
No,
Like I
no,
thought
no,
you
no.
were making a joke
I
that
also
it
think
looked like
Takodana is
Taco
where
Bell or something.
Maz's people are, not where the rebel base is. I can't remember what the rebel base is now. But point is,
They're
they get to
in
the rebel
the
base.
Ilenium system.
System. Thank you. To get to the Ilenium system. Everyone rushes to Finn and to like go with Finn and make sure he's okay.
The way they put him on that bed in a stretcher and they go, careful, he's hurt. No shit.
And they're like, he's got a heartbeat. Let's go. And they go. But like, Rey does not go with Finn. She's not worried. She just wait and then goes to Leia immediately, which I think is so strange because she's never met Leia. She doesn't know who the fuck Leia is. Like, I guess maybe they felt some like connection through the Force or something, but it felt very much like if it was the tables were turned, Finn would not have left Rey's side, and Rey was just like, bye, Finn, like dying on this table. Like I'm gonna go find this like powerful Force using badass woman, which like I get it, fair. I would also seek out Leia. But like in this instance, like leaving your friend behind for someone you've never met just always confused me.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a little odd. It's like I just thought of this kind of funny comparison in my mind. Because I always viewed it as, well, obviously Leia and Rey are coming together in their grief for Han. And it's kind of like, okay, once again, we have someone who was like a quote apprentice of someone for one day and loses them and is like, Leia, I'm so sad. And Leia's like, that was my husband, damn it. Like,
Yeah, dude, that was
that was my guy.
It's like crazy behavior.
Yeah, pretty wild.
Oh, are you frozen, Aaron? Oh, you froze for a minute in a really funny stance. Any other thoughts?
On Rey, you said?
Yeah, I mean, like as
You cut out.
obviously,
That's all.
my perspective is from a straight man. Like as a woman, like what was it like to see like a woman lead in Star Wars? Did it like as a kid, as a 13-year-old kid, was it cool? Was it just like normal? Like, did you think about that at all when you were younger?
So I did not here's the thing. I didn't view it as cool. And I'm sitting here with myself thinking, is that because I was like frustrated that she was getting so much attention as like the girl Jedi when like Ahsoka has been my girl Jedi, bitch?
Mm,
Like, am I pissed
right.
about that? Or like on a very more real note, like I was raised very conservative in the type of environment where feminism is kind of demonized. Like it's seen as like a problem to
I
rebel
hate
so
that.
aggressively against the patriarchy. And so I think just the idea of, I mean, if Barbie had come out when I was 13, Lord, I would have been the biggest Reddit hater. Like I was such a sheep. I was just following what I was told to do, you know? Which is not good. And I'm glad I'm not that person anymore. I'm very thankful that I've grown. But yeah, I think that in retrospect, that may have gone into it, is I had
Mhm.
this kind of prejudice against things that were presented to be more like feminist or like, oh, this is a big deal because she's a girl Jedi. And I'm like, I don't give a shit. I just want a Jedi. Like, meh.
I love that. I love
So,
that.
yeah, just a little self introspect for all of you that I just kind of happened upon just now.
No, and that's great because I think there was so much attention put on the fact that we had a woman and a black man as the lead in this movie, and it was like, why is that the focus at this time? Like,
Yeah.
why these are like two very qualified actors? They fucking killed their roles.
Yeah.
And it just it frustrated me a lot at the time that that's where the dialogue was going instead of like just
Mhm.
pure excitement about this new Star Wars movie. Everyone was just like, "Oh, Disney's so woke, they're ruining," and I'm like,
Exactly.
because we don't have
Yeah.
a bunch of white male leads again. You guys are mad. Like, perhaps introspection here, y'all. Like,
You guys are pissed that art is reflecting life? Like, come on.
it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's interesting. I definitely like had a lot more feelings about Rey being a woman than I ever had about Finn being a black man. Like never once
Mm.
did I think about that or have issue with that. I did think, okay, this isn't about Finn or Rey, but just to be a hater.
Just to be a hater.
Okay.
Oh God,
So I
where's
was
this
like,
going?
I was a piece of shit when I was 13, right?
Be
And
nice
that
to
movie
yourself.
ended. Okay. Well, I was to other people in my head, I'll say. These are
Okay.
thoughts that I haven't said aloud before. But basically the movie ended and I go, damn, I really thought there was going to be hot people in that movie.
Damn, Aaron, the fuck? There were
I
so
was
many hot
like,
people in that movie.
these people look so plain. Like I hated Adam Driver. I hated uh Ray. Here's the thing. I loved Daisy Ridley. I did. Like I really got into her as an artist and her story, how she was a waitress, and like the moment she got the call that she was in, she said, "Thank you," and I quit. And like I just, as someone who wanted to be an actor when I was a kid, that was like such a inspiring story to me. Like, oh, she's in her mid-20s and she still like made it big. I absolutely loved that. But yeah, it wasn't until like The Last Jedi when I was like, wait a second.
Mhm.
All these people are really fine. Like
Mhm.
this is a
They really,
very beautiful cast. Like I
they
was such
really
a
are.
hater. I don't know why. But it's just a funny thing to look back on and be like, why was I such a hater? You know? I think
Yeah,
I'm gonna chalk it up to hormones and
that's fine.
being pretty sheltered, but
I think it's acceptable.
I had a very interesting experience with this movie the first couple times I watched it. But don't get me
Yeah,
wrong, I saw it like 4 times in theaters. I
yeah,
fucking loved it.
yeah. I saw it like 8 times. I was crazy. I also had more disposable income. It's fine. And by that I mean not very much. Okay, so
I
one
mean, I
more.
couldn't drive, so
Also, a good point. One more character I wanted to talk about briefly is BB-8, our little droid pal. Unless we want to
mhm.
touch on Poe briefly as well, but I think we did last week enough. Um,
Fuck
BB-8.
'em.
What? What'd you say?
No, you
Oh,
just said
fuck him
like,
to
"Oh, we
Poe.
are." Yeah, like, "Ah, fuck 'em,
Oh,
we already
there,
talked
there was a
about 'em."
delay. I was like, what? I was like, okay, BB-8. Love BB-8.
Oh, I was also a
Um,
BB-8 hater.
you are?
Not anymore,
What?
but I was. I was like, "They're trying to replace my guy R2. Like, don't do that. Don't try to make a cuter design. Don't try to
I
make him
just
look
thought
like
it
a
was a fun
stupid
addition. He was like
ball."
R2's little brother. He's a cute little ball. The actual concept of design was fun. It's based on like a soccer ball, and he was like, he's a little later thumbs up still to this day makes me laugh.
Is that a thumb or a middle finger? Because I always thought it was a middle finger. I
I thought it
thought
was a
Finn was
thumbs.
like, thumbs up, and Ball was like,
Oh, I interpreted it as just like
fuck you.
and also a thumbs up, but I guess that's another interpretation that's really funny as well. I thought he had a lot of personality, a lot of spunk, very loyal. His little beeps and boops were very, very like R2D2 esque. I'm gonna say that again. All their beeps and boops were very R2D2 esque. So I don't know. I really loved him. I thought it was super cute, and he did indeed probably sell Lucasfilm a ton of merch. But
So much merch.
he is a
Oh my
welcome
God.
addition to my droid family of 3PO, R2, and then their grandchild BB-8.
No Chop?
Chop is not part
Chopper?
of that family. Chop is the estranged uncle who's gone on multiple murder sprees.
Jeez.
Chopper has a higher kill count than maybe anyone in Star Wars, except maybe Luke Skywalker.
Yes.
One Death Star away gets you.
Yes.
Or I guess whoever
skyrocket.
pressed the button for the Death Star to blow up Alderaan. Either way, Chopper has a ridiculous death toll. So
Yeah, no, BB-8's a fun droid. He's a fun little feature. I don't know. I still prefer R2 in like a typical astromech build.
I do too, but I still love I still love BB-8.
He does have like those fun little. It was funny to see him like when Rey and Finn are on Jakku trying to like fly away, and he like kind of went around in a circle, and then the second time they went upside down, he stuck his little cords out and like caught himself. That was fun. That was pretty cute. He was like, "I'm not falling for this shit again." So maybe I think that's a good way to put it when you said he's kind of like R2's little brother.
Yeah.
It's like I feel about BB-8. Okay, wait, no. This is incorrect. I was going to say I feel about BB-8 the way I feel about Scrappy Doo, but that's way too harsh. I hate Scrappy Doo.
Whoa, Scrappy Doo? Bruh, Scooby-Doo is superior to Scrappy Doo on every level.
Every way. And that's how I feel about R2, except like if Scrappy Doo actually had redeeming qualities, this would be BB-8.
His name's Scrappy Doo. That's a redeeming quality.
Hopefully I didn't just lose everyone.
Absolutely wild.
I don't know. Scooby-Doo is like an old thing, right? I think everyone loves Scooby.
Scooby-Doo, where are you? Okay, sorry, Matthew.
Anyways, so there's actually a character that I wanted to chat about that I had a lot of excitement over in this movie that we haven't talked about yet. Any guesses?
Captain Phasma?
No, but that's a good one. We could chat about her. Also no.
Snoke?
Yeah! Third time's the charm. So, Snoke, what did you think of Snoke when you first saw this movie? Like this giant hologram.
I was convinced he was Darth Plagueis.
Oh, okay.
Back from the he never died or had found a way to eternal life or something.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was menacing. I did believe that he was either like, I mean, like, I know that Palpatine had projected himself very large, but I still thought he was going to be like a large guy. But he was very scary and menacing, and I was like, "Who is this like scary Sith motherfucker who like has a deformed face?" And like that's why I thought that like maybe he is like a reborn clone or a corpse or something. But Alex, not far off. But
you give yourself those
he was
back pats.
in power. I was like waiting for like if Kylo was powerful and kind of badass, I was like, what is this menacing lurking Snoke figure? Like it felt very much the way that like Palpatine felt in the originals, but like Snoke felt like he could be even more dangerous. Like if he's as big as he is, I was picturing him to have like a giant lightsaber too. Like I don't know, man. He was scary.
Yeah, I agree. I thought he was bigger. I knew he wasn't the size that he projected as, but I assumed like, because I mean, Plagueis is a Moon, right? Moon,
whatever. Yes, that
something. He is a species, and they're tall. They're above average human height. I don't know, probably like 7, maybe 8 feet tall. I would guess, similar to the what species is the Grand Inquisitor?
The Utapawan species, whatever they're called from Utapau.
I don't know their name. But yeah, like I assumed that he was very tall and like 12 feet. I'm thinking like Bjorn the Bear. I'm thinking big old guy.
Okay. Okay.
Um
Keep going. We're in the semantics.
and okay. It was just like such a menacing figure, and his like low, like gravelly tone of voice.
Mm,
It's the type of power and evil that doesn't need to yell to be scary.
hmm
Unlike Kylo Ren, who feels a need to throw a fucking fit to be scary. Actually, I don't know if he's doing it to be scary. I think he's just having a lot of emotions. But I was really, really excited to see Snoke, and I was so let down.
Yeah.
Um,
Again, we'll talk about that in the bonus.
we'll talk about it in the bonus.
But I was
But
also very excited, like when he said, bring her to me. Like it's time to complete Kylo's training. Like bring this girl before me. I was like, bruh, this is gonna be
it's
fun.
about to get
And Andy
real.
Serkis,
Yeah,
Gollum, love of my life, playing the voice actor for Snoke, incredible, incredible,
incredible. Andy Serkis is an absolute
gem,
king.
a national treasure.
Yeah,
Um,
don't think he's American.
he's still from a country, so a national treasure to that country.
Oh, okay, yeah,
So we can touch briefly, I guess. Phasma, as I said last week to me, huge letdown in that like she was promoted in the promotional materials in the trailer, and she was on screen for like a grand total of maybe 4 minutes. I thought that, like
yeah,
she could have been on screen a little bit more. Like she just seems so cool and
yeah. It's such a
um
new design for like a commander to be in completely different garb
like
instead of just
chrome.
like
Oh,
okay,
it was
so
cool.
nice, so
Cool.
cool. Yeah,
She was just so menacing. I don't know. Big fan.
I wish I didn't know Captain Phasma was a girl. Like if I didn't know who Gwendolyn Christie was, I could have watched that whole trilogy and not known that Captain Phasma was a woman. And maybe that's okay, Like it doesn't need to be, oh, she's a woman. But like it would have been cool to see that representation, even though I was just hating on the representation of Rey a little bit from my
Yeah.
teenage mind. It would have been cool to know that there
Yeah.
were women stormtroopers as well.
Yeah. I agree.
Because again, that's just something within my single-mindedness. And I think a lot of people is like, oh, they're all probably carbon copies there, if not clones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So there's 3 more quick things I want to touch on before
Yep.
we get to the bonus.
Okay.
1, Easter eggs in this movie. There are many, and they are really fun. And I just wanted to touch on them very briefly. Like one of them is the Rebel helmet, obviously, that like Rey puts on her head is, just like the helmets that were worn in the X-Wings in the originals. The very subtle one that a lot of people miss is when Finn is going to treat Chewie on the Falcon. Like they're trying to, like Han and Rey are trying to escape, and Finn is trying to treat Chewie's injury, and he was reaching his medical bag looking for stuff, and he momentarily pulls out the lightsaber training droid that Obi-Wan used with Luke in episode 4, and I thought that was always very fun.
That is a cool
Also,
little Easter egg.
what'd you say?
I said that's a cool little Easter egg.
Yeah. Also, FN, I can't remember if I mentioned this last week, but FN 2187 is the cell block number that Princess Leia was in episode 4. Yeah, that's another little fun
That's
fact
so
for you.
cool. That's fun.
Yep.
Those were fun facts.
One final one. Sorry, one more. Daniel
Oh.
Craig, if anyone has seen the James Bond 007 movies, he actually has a cameo as the stormtrooper who Rey uses her first Jedi mind trick on to release her from her little binders. And I remember reading interviews about how fucking excited Daniel Craig was to be in Star Wars. He was just like, I've been a like a Star Wars fan for so long, just geeking out. And that's again, like you would never know unless you like really watch the credits, but it was just a very cute, fun Easter egg that I really appreciated.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong. I think I saw that 007 was shooting in the same area at the time.
Probably.
And he was like, I don't know if he asked or if they were like, hey, does anyone want to do a cameo? I feel like he probably asked.
Probably asked. He
But
probably asked. Very much like
that's
the
pretty
energy
cool.
of Obi-Wan Kenobi, they said in an interview that Obi-Wan, like Ewan McGregor, just for that line that he says to Rey, "These are your first steps." Apparently, he quote rode in on a motorcycle, recorded the line, and then rode back out into the sunset.
Oh, okay.
Love Ewan McGregor, the coolest man on the planet.
Literally.
Also, this movie, Erin, is so funny.
This
I
movie is so
forget
funny.
every time I watch this movie, I'm like, this movie is fucking hilarious. It's like actually a comedy. Like it's a sci-fi comedy.
It's truly a comedy.
I found myself laughing. It's so like even the jokes that like I've heard a million times, the physical humor, the jokes. I mean, it is. I think they did an excellent job at making it like.
Oh
Star
my
Wars in
God.
general was funny, but
My favorite is the bit where Finn's like, okay, so we gotta find Rey by doing this and this and this. And then Han Solo like motions with his head and he's like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? What does this mean? Han like taps him with his gun and just points.
yeah,
And there's
that's the
Rey.
physical human part. And then there's Rey. It's just all of it. So, or like the line, like slash Easter egg and funny line where you're like, after the Phasma lowers the shields, Finn goes like, "What should we do with her?" And Han goes, "Is there a garbage chute, trash compactor?" Yeah, there is. Yeah, that was hilarious. I was like, yes, put her through the hell that Han went through. He's like still triggered by the Death Star. Or yes, the other thing, they're fucking like when they're talking all around the holo table on the in Elenium system, like Han's like, I just want to help, and Leia's like, what has that ever helped? Don't say the Death Star.
Don't say the Death Star.
Dude, it's just so funny. It's so funny, that movie. Or like when the woman's treating Chewbacca, that sounds so scary.
Yeah.
You must have been so brave. And he's like,
It's so funny.
So funny. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about, then I'll turn over anything you want to get last bits in here is, can we just touch briefly on the cliffhanger at the end? Luke makes an appearance finally.
Yes.
After the whole movie, we finally find Luke Skywalker, and we are left for 2 years to contemplate what's going to happen. The lightsabers extended out. This moment is being built. I even wrote in my little notes, I'm like, clearly, obviously, Luke's going to exist. Luke accepts the lightsaber and welcomes Rey to be his apprentice and like joins the fight again. And I'm like so excited. As we know, that's not what happened. But, in that moment, I felt so much hope and excitement, and Luke had so much emotion on his face. And I really think the cliffhanger worked exceptionally well in this movie. And I feel like we haven't no other Star Wars movie really ended on like a hard cliffhanger. Like episode 1, 2, 3, all of them were wrapped up fairly nicely. Like it's episode 5, kind of, but not really. Like this is like a cliffhanger. And I don't know, what were your thoughts on it when you first saw it, or even now? Like, what are your thoughts on the cliffhanger being used?
So like I mentioned, I watched this with my mom recently, and I'm just gonna relay her reaction because I think it's pretty akin to my original reaction in the theaters. But Rey walks up there, looks at him, she pulls out the lightsaber, she holds it out. And my mom's like, there's a lot of staring going on. She's like, are they gonna talk? And then it starts to zoom out and like pan in a circle. She goes, there's a lot of words being said with their eyes, but no actual words.
Oh my God.
She's like, when are they gonna talk? And then the movie ended.
Mark Hamill got paid like $15 million to show up and not say a single
So much
word.
money to just
stared. He did that stare so well. We love you, Mark. You did such a good job.
Yeah, I'm very glad.
That was. I also was convinced that there's a rock next to him if you watch it, and I convinced myself after about a year that was the grave of Mara Jade, and we were going to be introduced to the backstory that he actually had like married Mara Jade. Bro, I was down once they said to me, Erin, I had accepted as a child I was never going to get more Star Wars. Then once they opened that door again, I was down bad. I was down bad. I needed more. I was theorizing. I was like, I would go into the theater. I went to the theater one time with a notepad on like my 6th watch through and took physical notes on like what I thought was happening or what I thought could have happened or little things I was noticing in the periphery of the screen. That's what I made my Mara Jade suggestion. I was crazy at that point in my life, or I was a dedicated wild fan, I should say.
Yes. Yeah. I love it though.
Me too.
Now you have all this information.
I don't know if it's a good thing.
I just remember seeing all these memes of like, it's like, damn, Luke really just stared at her, and then it would be like a little animation of like the credits for The Last Jedi roll, and then like, you know, opening shot, and she just fucking chucks the Youngling Slayer 5000 at Luke's face. Like, bro, take it. I'm handing it to you.
I saw the memes of like, she's handing the lightsaber out. He goes, "There was a hand with that. Did you bring the hand?"
Yep. That's a good one too.
Oh,
That's a good one too.
Okay, Erin, do you have any last thoughts or topics that we didn't talk about in Force Awakens that you want to touch on before we go to the bonus content?
The fact that Finn drank livestock water,
Tough.
fucking foul.
Tough.
Absolutely foul. Like, I can't watch that back without just like,
Yeah. That was tough. That was so tough.
and like when he like drinks it and goes like I can feel the slime going down my throat. Oh my god.
Thank you for that lovely image.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. If I have to suffer, so do you.
Great. Anything else? As Kylo Ren
No.
says, anything else?
Anything else?
Well, thank you, Erin, and thank you, our friends and our listeners. I don't think we actually did a little promo, so members, stick around for the bonus content. We're going to be talking about how this movie set up so many things and then failed to deliver on almost all of them. But if you're not a member, please consider joining. Please consider signing up. It is only $5 a month, $55 a year if you sign up for the year. $5 is literally a cup of coffee in today's modern economy. So consider donating it to us. It helps keep the lights on. It helps pay for new microphones, just the general operations of this lovely podcast.
And most importantly, it pays for more yapping from us.
It pays for so much more yapping for us. I mean, to be fair, Erin and I do not get paid. But we do this out of the love of Star Wars. But your donations do help us get equipment and things we need to like make this work. I will eventually get an actual mic, as I am still using an Xbox Turtle Beach headset.
Ooh. Okay, free plug.
Replug. But yeah, check out. Please consider subscribing and stay.
You also get bonus
Oh yeah,
book of the month when you become a member.
I did a bad job.
We do a little book club every month. Book club.
We do a little book club. Last month's book was the Darth Plagueis book. This month, it's always it's always a surprise. We can't tell you what this month is, but last month was Darth Plagueis, and it was very, very fun. We do EU books, we do canon books. We try and keep it topical-esque, but sometimes we just kind of pick a book we want to read.
Yeah, I'll give a little hint for the book. It is another book that is named after the titular character that is a bad guy.
It's called
Let
Darth
your ideas
Vader.
run.
It's called Darth
Vader.
Okay, so thank you all again. Members, stick around, and I would do for Matthew. We have spoken. From Alex, stay classy, Takodana.
That's not how the Force works.